Hey there folks, Wrel here. In the background you'll see some filler footage from Witcher 3 as I share some insights into the difficulties of developing a large-scale project from scratch. This is going to take place of our weekly devlog on the development of Distal because it'll all go hand in hand. When you're building something from nothing, it can be very difficult to know where to start, and doubly difficult to determine how to continue. Usually this begins with a set of goals that aligns with your vision, and then you plot a potential path to get there. For example, my goals for Distal as a game go something like this. The TTRPG itself is meant for people who enjoy Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, and shiny math rocks with friends. I also wanted to generally make it more grounded, but not a gritty experience. I wanted to use what works from D&D and find alternative solutions for the stuff I don't like. And I wanted to create a very tactical, class-heavy game that focuses on collaborative world building right from character creation. Those were my goals for the game, but from the production side, they go something like this. I wanted the game to be free to download during alpha. Firstly, because I want to make sure that I got a bunch of eyes on it as quickly as I can manage, and secondly, because I personally felt uncomfortable with the idea of charging people to pay for an alpha that's going to change a whole lot. Other production goals include wanting to make sure it continues to be fun to develop, which also means making sure it's a game that I want to play, and I wanted to make sure that I could develop it mostly on my own. So now we're a month on from the release of the first alpha packet, which was November 3rd, and a little less than 2 months on from when I first started teasing that I was working on something fresh. All throughout a project's life, it's important to constantly reevaluate where you're going, whether your goals still make sense, and what you need to change. In order to do that, you have to be very candid and honest with yourself, and it can be difficult to do that because it puts you in a place of vulnerability. In fact, for anything that you want to create and share with others, you find a similar vulnerability because you are investing yourself in it, and no one wants to watch their hard work fall on deaf ears or closed eyes. That said, here's how we're doing so far. It took about 2 weeks to grab 100 Discord followers, which is great. A lot of the people who are currently there are either there to support me personally, which is awesome, thank you, or they're there to lurk out of skeptical interest, which is less awesome, but still appreciated. And far fewer are players of TTRPGs themselves. Momentum held pretty steady for a little bit, but then it quickly tapered off. So we're sitting around 120-ish people in the Discord so far, and while there continues to be a fair amount of helpful feedback and sporadic participation, it mostly feels like I'm talking to myself a lot of the time. On a podcast, that's probably fine, but when the thing that you're making relies on an engaged community, you already have an unsteady foundation on which to build. So one challenge that I need to overcome is the gathering of more TTRPG-minded folk, or maybe in your case, it would be just getting people who have an interest in whatever it is you're doing. Developing a community of any sort often comes down to the credibility and awareness that you have. Within the TTRPG industry, I have neither, so we're starting from mostly a clean slate. Building that sort of reputation takes time, but what happens if you don't have time? I spend roughly 8 to 12 hours a day working on this project in some capacity. Anything from the actual development of the game, to the formatting of the documents, to the supplemental material that I create, or to the building and managing of the Discord, to the creation of the art assets, to the social posts, to building the website, which I'm now scrapping, to blah, 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 blah. When you're an entrepreneur, a lot of times you'll be doing things on your own. Sometimes everything on your own, as is my case. Because of that, I have to try to manage my time and prioritize what gets worked on when, while keeping in mind that your personality, your pains, your setbacks aren't separate from your work. If I dive down a hyperfixation rabbit hole to learn a new skill, it pulls time away from something else. When I have a migraine and I feel like vomiting my guts out, it means that whatever I wanted to work on that day gets pushed back. When I feel like I'm beating my head against a wall or making no progress, it might mean that I need to shift focus to something else. Being aware of these sorts of quirks, challenges, what have you, you'll have an easier time navigating them when they do come up and allow you to be more efficient overall. That's how I try to push harder. I always want to get more done more quickly, but sometimes I kind of question the reasons for it. Since my project is currently free, I don't make enough money to support myself, and I have no other job. This is it, for the time being at least. Eventually, I will be out of money and need to do something else, meaning that this project will be whatever it ends up being, which honestly, it's a pretty good game already based on the experiences that I've had playtesting with real-life friends, but I'd still say that it's finding its voice. So, what? Should I sell the project? Should I sell things supporting the project? Should I rely on the good graces of others to support my work? Is the product worthy of support at all? These sorts of questions are constant and distracting, and I feel like I've been flailing a little bit trying to address them. I originally wanted to give people an option to support me via Discord, and a few have, but I also went into it with the knowledge that Discord is not a platform that is famous for its monetization. Compare that to Patreon, for example, which is a platform whose main purpose is to support creators. I wanted to take the risk anyway to try to consolidate my presence, keep it all being developed in the same couple of places, but it didn't pay off, so to speak. When things slowed down on the Discord front, I took a swing at developing a Shopify page for the game, mostly so that I could get a product shelf put up beneath my videos and use the pages to talk a little bit more about the system and what sets it apart, but the conversion rate is god-awful compared to the Linktree page, so I very recently redirected the links back to the Linktree. Developing that site took a few days to get it to where I mostly wanted it to be, but that's now time sunk. I don't want to continue to tinker when I'm not getting what I need out of it, namely, people able to easily download the core rules and get playing the game. All of this is to say that sometimes you'll encounter setbacks. The quicker that you can identify whether you should or should not push further, the better you'll be for it. An easy way to try to do this is to check to see if the task is aligning with your goals. The website had fewer conversions, therefore was an experiment that I'd rather fail fast and get back to doing other equally or more important tasks. I miss out on things like describing the system to others or getting the products on my YouTube shelf, but for the time being, the cost isn't worth it. From the game side of things, my system is in a fairly healthy state. I still want to make major changes to it, but that's alpha. I make sure to set aside time to hammer on it, and if you've been keeping up with my progress, I change and add and tune a lot of stuff pretty quickly. However, I don't get a lot of feedback on the system beyond a handful of heavily engaged folks in my Discord and my weekly playtesting with real-life friends. So the continued goal of trying to get eyeballs on the system and expand the game's reach is still very important to any future success that it might have. One way that I'll continue to address that is simply to reach out to other content creators, continue to invest myself in the TTRPG community, and put together more videos for the channel. This channel is currently in the process of shedding folks who aren't interested in this sort of content, and pivoting a channel even within the same genre is always difficult, so I expect that this will go on for quite some time yet. YouTube hates this sort of thing too, as it will surface your videos less often when your returning viewership isn't super interested in the stuff that you're doing, so kind of a nosedive that takes some effort to turn around. From the production side of things, I have two major problems. The first is money. Once we roll around to the beginning of next year, I'll need to evaluate whether or not I can still continue to work on the game, or if I'm going to be doing something different as my day job. When I'm working, I commit really, really hard, so I doubt that I'll have time enough to juggle a job and a side project, just knowing how I tend to work as a person. The second problem is getting concept art, which is also a money problem, I guess. I can't complete a book without art, and getting art is rough when you're doing everything out of pocket. A single, full-body piece of character art can vary wildly from artist to artist when it comes to cost. It can be anywhere from $100 to $500 more, depending on the quality and the art style. A high quality, full screen key art, like the ones that you'd see for Planetside 2's loading screens, would be about $10,000 on the low end from an art house that you're on good terms with. You can likely get either of those done more cheaply if you outsource to the right places, but you'll also face challenges with language barriers or art direction at the same time. A lot of art outsourcing houses will give you their A-team artists for the first project just to hook you on future business, but then they start to sub in junior artists or artists that just happen to be available, even if they don't fit the art style for your project, which means that the quality can vary wildly after that. I've dealt with this sort of thing enough in the past, so I can confidently say that building an outsourcing pipeline you can trust will 100% take some trial and effort. To address the money problem, since we're kind of in the do or die territory of Distal's development, I've been exploring the idea of starting Patreon back up again. The two questions I would have there are, 1, what kind of value can I provide to all of you if that were to happen? And 2, does Distal even have merit as a product? I don't know the answers to either of those questions, but I have to believe that the answer to number 2 is a yes, or else none of this is worth doing. To address the concept art problem, that's a little bit trickier. If Distal were to build up enough awareness and interest, I'd love to kickstart or backer kit to fund all the concept art alongside the books and whatever other goodies people would have an interest in, but it's a long way off of doing that. If I were to condense everything that we just talked about into a single takeaway, it would probably be that continuing to take the pulse of a project that you're working on is important. And in doing so, you want to make sure that you're grounded and rational in what you're setting out to accomplish. And you need to know what will happen if you fail. That said, if this video has been interesting, helpful, or entertaining, please feel free to like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel. And if you're interested in following the development of Distal, a high fantasy, class-heavy, D20-based tabletop role-playing system currently in open development, feel free to play thisrpg.com. Thanks very much, folks. Wrel signing off.